Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
And you got Luke.
Luke, today we're taking a look at how paper money is made.
So a little bit of backstory here. James calls me Tuesday and says,
Monday.
hey, let's do something on coins. And then I said, well, let's just do like all currency. And then you texted me or called me the next day. He's like, can we just do paper because there's too much for if we do both of these together.
It's true.
So
maybe we'll do coins some other time.
I think so, because coins were, I think, pretty interesting.
I believe you.
Just high level thinking about it. But paper ended up being way more interesting than I thought.
I feel like you really ruined my intro. Because I was going to say, we're talking about how paper money is made, and then I was going to say something witty like, and we're not talking like with our podcast, because we make so much
that's still
paper
witty.
money. Was that still good?
It's very witty.
All right, let's hear a little bit about the history, Luke.
Okay, so a couple things. The history of paper money goes way back. So
That's
paper
really
money
far back.
Yeah, way back. So it goes back to the Tang Dynasty, to right around the AD 1618 to
Give or take.
1907, give or take a couple hundred years. And they started carrying folding money during the Tang Dynasty, and they used this as ways to, rather than carrying their goods. So previously, before there was obviously paper money, you would have to either barter goods. So I'll give you a cow and you give me a chicken, or vice versa. So it was always a barter system. Then precious metals kind of were, discovered, and then it was gold and silver and those sorts of things. But carrying a lot of gold around is not easy. I know I carry a lot around.
I do too. I call it bling.
Bling.
Yes.
So basically, they were smart enough, like, you know what? Let's just agree that this paper equals this, and then we'll just use this instead of carrying all this stuff around. So they invented this way back when, and literally, it wasn't until like 500 years later that Europe finally caught on in the 17th century to be like, hey, instead of taking like a wagon of pigs over to this guy's house so I can get like 7 chickens, why not just give him a piece of paper that says, hey, when you want pigs, just come get them. It was like a promissory note. Is initially what paper currency was.
How much do you think 7 pigs costs?
Now?
I mean, fully grown, ready to eat pigs, not butchered,
as opposed to not ready to eat.
like babies that you'd have to raise on your own.
I would say I'm betting a pig is $1,500 a pop.
So 7 pigs is over $10K.
I would bet.
Wow. Okay, I think that's a good guess.
Yeah.
All right.
So moving on with moving on to a little bit of the history too, and I'm basing this all on like U.S. currency.
So, as we all know, the U.S. is the center of everything.
It is.
So this is all that really matters. So I
Yeah.
approve of this.
So interesting. So I remember hearing this in the past, something called the gold standard.
The gold standard.
And I think you've heard
It's
this.
kind of like our podcast is the gold
We
standard.
are the gold standard,
Yes.
James. So the gold standard basically meant that there was a certain amount of physical gold or silver, potentially. Could be paid out in silver, but gold or silver that was equal to the amount of paper money in the world. And where the problem kind of happened was the governments, and this isn't just the U.S., but governments all over the world, they could only make as much paper money as there was available gold. So literally, you could potentially run out of money, paper money, because you could only have so much paper money based off of the gold that you had in the bank. So the gold standard, back on June 5th, 1933, so again, up until 1933, every dollar in the United States had a gold equivalent sitting in a bank somewhere. Up until 1933, then that changed. They went off the gold standard, and what happened was they couldn't give gold to anybody. There were the United States has been on a gold standard all the way since like 1879, and then all the way back in 1971. So up until 1971, gold was $35 per ounce, and President Richard Nixon announced that the United States would no longer convert dollar bills to gold as a fixed value, thus completely abandoning the gold standard. And then in 1974, President Gerald Ford signed legislation that permitted Americans to again own gold bullion. So at one point, you had to turn all of your gold in. Like, you had to give it back to the banks, and they would give you the cash equivalent. They were
That
basically
stinks.
getting the gold off the market. And then just back in 74, you could actually buy gold. So here's the crazy thing about gold
We
standard.
couldn't buy gold until 1974.
Until 1974,
Wow.
you couldn't buy
Very
gold.
interesting.
So interesting. Let's say you were one of those people that didn't turn your gold back in. So it was $35 an ounce in 1971. Let's say your great-great-grandmother was like, you know what, I'm going to hold on to this because I think it's going to have some value. $35 an ounce. Today, it's $1,304.25 per ounce.
Thanks a lot, Grandma.
It is ridiculous what has happened with gold.
And that's down, isn't it?
It
Wasn't
is
higher?
down. It has been higher. So then this bears the question, right, James? And I've been wanting to use that term for ages.
Is the question
Bears the question. So what is our currency based on?
Bitcoin?
No, thank goodness. That was such a fad. Have you even heard anything about Bitcoin recently?
But we do have an episode on it. Go check it out.
We do. So basically, our currency is based on a currency called fiat money currency.
Like the car.
Like the car. You pronounce it the same way. And fiat money is regulated by the government through a Federal Reserve. For us, it is the Federal Reserve. And fiat money has nothing backing it except for debt. That's why the United States and all these different countries have like a ridiculous amount of debt. Like there's no physical commodity that actually backs the dollars in any country for the most part. There may be a few, they said, that still do it. And the only reason this works, and this is why the U.S. dollar is so strong, this only works in countries that have super stable governments and they have economies that have intelligent management systems and a centralized bank. A perfect example of this going wrong. And sorry for talking so much, but there's a lot of history here.
It.
Perfect example of this going wrong. So this just happened recently. So the United States, our money's super stable. So to deal with hyperinflation of 231 million %, in Zimbabwe,
poor
a
Zimbabwe.
loaf of bread cost 300 billion Zimbabwe dollars. That's B with a billion. And
Is it like that brown bread from Outback? Because that stuff's really good.
I could see that. Oh my goodness. So the problem is they're super unstable, and because there's no physical commodity like gold or silver to back it, it's whatever the government says it's worth.
That's crazy.
And this happens all over in these, third world countries. Their dollars are worth nothing, so they actually had to invent a note that was worth $100 trillion. A single piece of paper that was worth $100 trillion, and you get 6 loaves of bread for it.
Wow.
That is a 1 with 14 zeros, and it is, fun fact, it is the highest denomination in the world.
Wow. That is a fun fact.
Bananas.
Way to go, Zimbabwe.
So this is why, you want to make sure that, live in the United States or other countries that have stable financial systems so that your dollars don't tank.
That's really impressive.
Yeah.
I did want to let you know that the Bitcoin is worth $5,200 at the time of recording, just shy of its $20,000 peak.
Wah, wah.
All right. Well, thanks for all that,
sorry,
Luke. That was
sorry.
amazing. Gosh, I just want some bread right now.
I know. I do want some brown bread, and I'm off the carbs right now, too, so it's even worse.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay, so how about how paper money is made? Back on topic, huh? So the Bureau of Engraving and Printing is kind of who does all this stuff. Did you see that?
I did.
And so they have facilities in D.C. and Fort Worth, Texas.
They do?
Everything's bigger in Texas, so I assume that facility is much larger.
They'd make more than 50%.
Oh, well, there we go.
I think it's like 55%.
Easy. They create around 35 million bills per day.
Individual, you don't mean dollar value, you mean individual
bills.
Okay.
The value being around 635 million. That's a lot of smackers.
How much did you say? In one day?
635 million.
This is the problem with not having money backed by like a commodity like gold or silver. You can just print more money and then have more money.
Yeah, but that's not necessarily what's happening here because a lot of money needs replaced over time. Yeah. So that's kind of helpful. So the process that they're using is a little different than what it was back in 1862 when it started, or when we started making paper money. And that was basically people separating notes by hand and cranking a hand machine in the basement of the Treasury building.
And putting a couple in our pocket.
Well, I assume that's
you
what was
imagine?
happening, right? They were probably the richest people in town.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay, so first off, what is paper money made out of?
I know this, but I'm going to let you tell me.
It's not paper.
It's not at all.
That's a sneaky
it's a
trick.
fallacy.
75% cotton, 25% linen.
But
Are
isn't
those the
linen
numbers
cotton?
you have? I don't know what linen is. Let's do an episode on that.
Whenever I read it, I was like, aren't linen and cotton the same thing?
I know. So fun fact for you, starting in 1990, the paper for $10 bills and higher was created out of 2 plies with a polymer security thread laminated between them.
I remember when that happened.
Yeah, I do too. It was a long time ago. Old. In 93, the $5 bill also got that added. And apparently a $1 bill is so worthless that they're like, it's probably more expensive to do it than just bother. But now they can't be duplicated by photocopiers and printers, or at least not as easily. So that's nice. And I have a whole bunch of security stuff at the end of this.
The security stuff was one of the most surprising things to me.
A lot of cool stuff going on with that. All right, but each bill in the U.S. has green ink on its back, the greenbacks. Right? And the faces are black ink. They also have a mix of color shifting ink in the lower right corner of the $10s and $100 bills. And they have a metallic ink that's used on the, quote, freedom icons on the $10, $20, and $50 bills. And then in the inkwell icon in the $100 bill, it also uses the color shifting stuff. So if you're like wiggling the money around,
there's a hologram on the $100 bill too.
There's holograms on there as well. So I don't actually have any cash money because I'm Poe, but if I wasn't, I'd be able to verify these things. The internet told me, though. Fun fact for you as well.
Shoot.
A single company has provided the paper for the U.S. bills since 1879. Did you see this?
Talk about job security.
Yeah. Whew. Crane & Co. in Dalton, Massachusetts. What's more interesting is that it holds an extra special place in the hearts of history in the U.S. because in 1776 it was called Liberty Paper Mill, and it served for Paul Revere when he needed to print notes for paying American soldiers. Yeah.
That's bananas.
I feel like that made this episode all worth it. Like if people stopped listening now, don't do that. They would be getting a lot out of this.
The company that makes our paper today made the paper for Paul Revere.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Crazy town.
If 2 by land, 1 by sea, or what did he say?
1 if by land, 2 if by sea.
Yeah, that's
3
what I
if
meant.
by air, but they didn't really have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we move on to how things are actually designed, let's take a break for a word from our sponsor.
I have to assume it is the U.S. Federal government.
Yeah, the government's paying us
We're going to get in a lot of
money.
trouble for this,
Yeah,
for saying that.
We
No,
really might.
they're not.
No sponsors,
No
but we do have shout-outs.
affiliation.
Charlie W. is looking for an episode where he got his shout-out, and I wasn't about to go listen to all of our episodes, so Charlie W., here's another shout-out.
Yeah.
So listen to this one
Good old
and remember.
CW. I love that.
Our friend JP just got a new job.
I saw
So
that.
shout out to JP.
Yeah,
He's been at the same place for like 900 years, I think.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Chris H. from Toronto, an ME working as a data analyst, which sounds just really exciting, suggests we do an episode on fake engineers, which I like, meaning like train engineers, audio engineers.
People have engineer in the name that aren't engineers.
Yeah. And then Chris F., another Chris, we got a strong Chris following.
Yeah, we do.
Wrote in and has been listening for about a year now and would like an episode on pumps. So that's something.
We might be able to help you out there, Chris, but the problem is...
Is that boring?
Well, no, I guess...
That's what you were gonna say. It's like, that's mean.
I think we'd have to expand... I don't know.
We might have to expand a little bit, but yeah.
Good recommendation, though.
Yeah, if you have a recommendation, email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com. Head on to iTunes or wherever you listen.
Subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe. Like,
review. We'll send you some stickers if you tell us where to send them to you.
We're up to 92 reviews, so that's pretty good.
Whoa.
We're almost going to hit that magic 100, and that's where the big money comes.
Cha-ching.
Okay, moving on to design. So basically, design isn't a thing anymore. It's now redesigning, right?
Yeah.
Because we have all the bills we need, except for the Sacagawea dollar. That was kind of net new, right, when it came out? We didn't have coin dollars anymore.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah. Anyways, do you think people just pocketed all of those? Is that what happened?
Probably.
Yeah. So anyways, they work on all sorts of levels. Like the design process takes years and years and years.
I was really surprised that there's actual artists that like. I just assumed this was all done on computers, but I saw some stuff where they're doing it by hand.
There's a lot of engraving by hand.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that are going in for counterfeiting features that are and then we'll get into more of it, but then the process of actually getting the molds that are then used to keep things printing the same all the time is crazy.
The lady that I saw doing the engraving in the video, she had a terrible towel on the back of her seat.
Did she really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
She was doing the engraving for the stamp or the blank or whatever they call it for the 20, I think, and she was doing the engraving, and on her chair there's a terrible towel in the background. It was awesome.
So traditionally, like you mentioned, they'd use classical tools like the pencil and pen and ink and paintbrushes to create the different visual effects and then get things ready for engravers who are using just tiny tools, and they take forever to do their job. Today, a lot of it is done with modern technology to manipulate things, but it's kind of like afterwards, like after all of the art's done, they can add security features and additional things in there. I can just imagine people there with Photoshop like poking around for days and days and days. So then there's something called Ography. Did you see this?
I did.
Oh, you did? See, whenever I ask that, it's kind of implying like I know you didn't look into this.
No, I don't have any information on it, but I saw it.
Okay. So Ography is basically the way you put multiple images of like the hand engraved dies and transfer them to a printing plate. So this is a whole procedure. So cytographers use a machine that push as much as like 4 tons per square inch of force to transfer the original work like of the engraved thing onto the master die. And later individual plastic molds are then made from the master die, and then they're assembled into a plate. And then this is kind of what's used, almost, for printing the money. So that's kind of cool. So after the dies are assembled and reproduced on plates, engravers cut in additional items into those, such as the series, quadrant numbers, and signatures into the plates using the pantograph machine. So even once the design's done, there's still more work to be doing.
That's pretty cool.
So then it goes to plate making. And the plate making is where they take the plastic master plates. So they had one master plate to rule them all. Then they made like the other 13 rings in Lord of the Rings? Anyways. Then they get all the other rings that aren't ruling them all. And they're all identical. And they need to do something called electroplating. So I don't think we've ever done an episode on electroplating, but it might be interesting, yeah. So the master plate, it's like the plastic master, is sprayed with a silver nitrate, and it acts as an electrical conductor. The plate's then put in a tank filled with a nickel salt solution, and an electric current is generated, and
it attaches.
What was the noise again?
Zzz.
And then when it attaches, that was good. Okay. So nickel ions leave the solution and deposit themselves on the electrically charged surface of the master. So this is kind of an intense process. After 22 hours, a nickel plate called an alto is basically like literally grown. Like from the initial plate, it's grown outwards, collecting those ions, which is crazy town. And so the alto is separated from the plastic master, trimmed, inspected to make sure it's quality, and then the intricate details are then extracted exactly the same for everything. So you can do this a whole bunch of times then.
So, but they do this like once. And then what are they? So we're paying these people. What are they doing the rest of the year? Like after they made the 100, I think is the most recent update.
Nothing.
What are they doing now? What are they working on?
Drinking.
Probably.
Doing nothing. Collecting our tax dollars. So like this is all scrutinized very significantly.
Yeah.
These things have a margin of error of plus or minus 0.0003
millimeters or inches
of an inch. Yeah, that's a lot.
That's pretty small.
So that's like 1/10 the thickness of a human hair. If they're off by more than that, throw them out. They're no good for making our money. So then we get to printing money. Are you interested in printing?
I'm very interested in printing.
Are you? Do you know anything about printing?
I got a high level kind of 7 bullet points, but I'm sure you got a lot more detail.
So I see bullet point 1, special ink, right?
Yeah.
So they use special ink, and we mentioned like the green and the black and the metallic and the shape.
There's yellow
color
in
shifting.
the 100 now. There's a little bit of yellow.
His face looks a little weird to me.
Yeah.
Next step is the offset printing. Is that your next?
Yep.
Hey, that's what you have next step as well. All right. So the colored background design is duplicated on a film negative, and it's transferred to a thin steel printing plate, and with light-sensitive coating to, when exposed to ultraviolet light, and this is called a burning a plate. So then this ink's transferred to the printing plate, to the rubbers, the cylinders.
That's exactly what they sounded like when I watched the video.
Was it?
Yeah,
It was
exactly.
pretty close. Printing sheets take 72 hours to dry, and then we continue on our way on to, well, I guess there's still more printing. So they're then combined and transferred through printing plates, and you basically just keep printing over and over again and running the different layers of ink on there.
So
is that about right?
So there's like a background, and then the face is a separate print. The back is a separate print because, like you said, it takes a while for this to dry. So it's multiple processes. A thing I didn't know. So then after these multiple printing processes, and they pretty much have everything on, they do a quick inspection of them, and then they do what's called overprinting. And I didn't know this. I just assumed it was done at the same time.
I did too, especially because they're doing
everything else.
The different colored paints, the metallic paints, all of that's happening. I mean, not at the same exact time, but through that run of offset printing.
Yeah, but then the very last thing is they put the serial numbers on last. That's the very last thing that happens. And then they cut them, trim them, shrink wrap them, and then they go in my pockets.
Do they?
Sometimes.
I thought for the overprinting, I thought this was kind of neat. A little bit of fun fact. The modern serial numbers, so all those numbers and letters on there, consist of 2 prefix letters, 8 numerals, and 1 suffix letter. And the first prefix number indicates the series. The second prefix letter indicates the Federal Reserve Bank to which the note is issued. And the suffix letter changes every 99,990,999 notes.
Wow.
So DG 9999999A is then followed by DG 0000001B. And then it keeps changing.
Yeah. That's a lot of money.
A lot of money. Cash money. Well, they're making so many bills a day, I bet they pound through those things.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah. Okay, before we continue on with any more of the process, let's take a break for this week's Luke's Rant.
So let's keep this related to money.
Money.
Yeah. So
Is it that we don't have enough of it?
No, we're loaded.
Okay.
We got podcast money, baby.
That's true.
So I'm a big TurboTax fan. I've been doing TurboTax for ages. Like, I can't remember not ever doing TurboTax. I've probably been doing TurboTax for 17 years.
It's been around a while.
16 years. And I've never had an issue with TurboTax one single solitary time. So I do my taxes like 2 months ago. I was so proud of myself. Me and my wife were excited. I was like, yeah, we're going to get this done really early. We're going to do all this stuff. So we do our taxes, and I submit them. And I'm positive, I went and looked, I couldn't find it, but I was positive I saw an email that said, oh, your taxes have been accepted, so here's the vouchers, because I owe money, because we make so much extra podcast money on the side.
That's what happens.
I owed money, so we got the little certificates to tell you how much you owe. We sent them in, and then yesterday I get this email when I was supposed to be prepping for our podcast that says, your taxes have been denied or rejected, and I was like, what? So I go into TurboTax. I thought it was a scam at first, like, oh, someone's phishing me, and then it turned out to be real. I launched TurboTax. Here, there was an update in the background that had some check boxes that the original one when I filed it, so I hit update, it fixed it, I submitted it, and they're accepted and done. But that's just crazy that it was accepted and done, and then somehow it got rejected. So
TurboTax, you have lost. Well, you haven't, but
no, because they fixed the problem super quickly. And
so your rant is that you had to go back into TurboTax?
Yeah, but I don't know.
Who's now not going to sponsor us anymore?
No, I think so. Maybe it's a compliment, James, instead of a rant. I very rarely TurboTax. Good on you for making sure my taxes are filed properly and doing an update and making sure that it all works. So I think this went from a rant to like a good on you.
Well, good on you, TurboTax.
Yeah.
All right, let's move back to money.
Yes.
Yes? Okay. So we talked about how we do the offset printing. I see you have the note of intaglio. Is that right? Intaglio?
I think that's how you say it.
Intaglio printing. So that's used for the portraits, the vignettes, the scroll work, the numerals, the letters, a lot of like the detail-y stuff. Fun fact for you, Intaglio comes from the Italian word meaning to cut or engrave, referring to the design being skillfully carved into steel dies with sharp tools and acids. So that's kind of interesting. Okay, and then they have to like, that's the noise of chopping.
Yep.
So you chop up the bills. And before you wrap them all up in some sweet plastic and send them on their way, you have to have the upgraded offline currency inspection system, the UOCIS,
Really?
to make sure that everything's, good, right?
Okay.
So this is what they're using. They're using integrated computers and cameras and sophisticated software to analyze the untrimmed sheets first to make sure that there's the proper color and the ink density is right. And it does this all super fast, like 0.3 of a second. It determines if the sheets are any good.
That's pretty fast.
Then they do that and chop it all up.
Okay.
And then they make sure the chopping was okay.
Yeah.
And that's when they then, they slap it on a pallet, wrap it up, and send it on its way?
Send it
like
right
that.
to my front door.
Right to Luke's door. And then he actually determines who gets the money from there. So then what happens, Luke? What happens when the money's no good anymore?
I have a couple notes on that.
Oh, let's hear about what happens when the money's
I have
no
this
good.
more as like a fun fact. So,
Okay.
So a $1 bill only lasts about 21 months.
I saw 18, so my $1 bills must get used more harshly than
Yeah.
yours.
So and what it is, because it's by far the most widely used bill out there. Every time you're counting change, it's always ones and fives and stuff like that. So ones last about 2 years. We'll say we'll kind of go.
We'll go even higher than either of our numbers.
Yeah, a little less than 2 years. I kind of did that wrong. Sorry, a little less than 2 years. So what they do is they gotta decommission the money. They can't leave it in circulation.
No,
the Ben Franklin, the 5, actually lasts significantly longer, up to 7 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Shows how much we use those, huh?
that's what I have.
That's what you have. Did you say the Ben Franklin $5 bill?
Yeah, whatever Ben Franklin is on. What's Ben Franklin on?
I just paused completely. The 100.
The 100. I'm sorry.
Jeez,
Yeah,
I
Ben
figured with
Franklin.
all your big money you'd know this.
The 100 lasts 7 years.
I'm glad I caught that one. I figured someone would have yelled at us for that. Yeah, so they basically take these used up bills that either are torn or defaced or worn down that they're no longer usable, and they chop them up and they shred them and they're recycled. And a lot of them are used for roofing shingles or for insulation.
Interesting.
So your roof might be worth a lot of money. Well, I mean,
costs
it
a lot
is,
of money.
but yeah. So how do you know if you have a fake cash money? Do you want to think about that a little bit? So basically, what are the security features that go into these things?
There's a ton of them. I was shocked.
First, so let's take out money. Everybody listening, take some cash money out of their pocket. I'm going to take out, it's a 10. I'm rich today. I take this 10 out, and I feel it first. Okay, you all heard me feeling the money. The paper feels rough to the touch. Now tilt the note to see the color-shifting ink in the lower right corner. Oh, so for mine, it's like a sparkly 10. Luke's a big money maker, so he's got a 20. So his 20 sparkles as well. Okay, next. So say you have the sparkly 10, you're doing pretty good. If you have 100, it has a color-shifting bell and ink thing, and the security ribbon with images of bells and hundreds when you shift and tilt it. So when you move it around, you'll see a line in it, and you're going to see in that little line that it has like little shapes and hundreds marked on it. If you hold it up to the light, you can see security thread and watermarks on the 5s and higher visible on both sides. So if we lift it up, we can see like a little watermark, and we can see the security thread. Now you'll notice
security threads are in different spots on different bills.
That's what I was going to tell you, is that the security thread's in a different spot on all of the different bills, so that's helpful.
And you're missing one, or were you still going to do it?
I don't. So on the 10 and higher, the watermark matches the portrait.
Yep.
And on the 5s, there's 2 watermarks, both the number 5. So where's the watermark on this? Oh, there it is. Look it in the corner.
And you
it
can see it from both
matches.
sides.
Can you? Woo, there you go. That's impressive. Okay. So the watermark, and then the thread on each bill's in a different spot, like you said. Oh, and on top of that, not only can you see it, if that's not good enough for you, bust out the old UV light, and the color of the thread is different as well.
I always wondered why I saw people at the stores with the light, like when you have a $100 bill. I never realized that's what they were doing.
They never do that for me. They just...
Because I pay.
They look at my singles and they're like, well,
I pay everything with hundreds.
I always walk in with a giant stack of singles and they're like putting on rubber gloves. Like, we're not going to be touching that today.
It's funny you say that because fun fact about currency. So all money, as it turns out, should be laundered, like physically washed.
I think it's illegal to do that?
I don't
to
mean
launder?
I mean like actually...
Oh,
put your money
like put it in the bathtub.
I mean clean it. I don't mean like when you think of money laundering.
Okay.
A study has showed that upwards of 80% of all U.S. currency is contaminated with cocaine.
No.
Yep.
80%.
80%.
Even the single dollar bills.
The vast majority is contaminated with cocaine. I saw another study that said something like 20% is contaminated with fecal matter in some way.
See, I would have thought those numbers would be swamped.
No. And the reason why the cocaine, and it's not just everybody thinks, oh, people are rolling up money to sniff it, but actually
that's only most of it.
The drug cartels, whenever they package the money with the cocaine, a lot of times they're just in close proximity. So, like if you would swab,
that's all.
They would say if you swabbed an ATM, you would find fecal matter and cocaine inside of an ATM.
Been there before. All right, fun fact for you: it takes about 4,000 double folds before a bill will tear. That's a lot of folds. But if you think about it, in my wallet all the time.
Want another fun fact?
Yeah, I do.
Measuring roughly the size of a legal size sheet of paper, the world's largest single banknote is a 100,000 peso note that was created by the government.
Like size-wise?
Physical size is a peso note worth $100,000 in the Philippines, and it was in 1998. It was a commemorative? It was a commemorative bill. It wasn't general circulation, but it actually had real value. You could buy stuff with it. Another interesting fact, I just totally lost my train of thought, James. So if you have another fun fact,
I have
you can
one
go with
really
yours.
good fun fact that I think we should end on.
Oh, shoot.
For 300 billion Zimbabwean dollars, you can buy a brown loaf of Outback bread.
Nice.
Fact. That's science. All right. Anything?
I do have one more.
Oh, okay. I thought you forgot.
No, I remembered it. Do you know the United States is one of the few countries that all bills are the exact same size?
I did not
Which
know that.
is a significant problem. Do you know why?
No.
People who are visually impaired, when they're in other countries, all the bills are different sizes, so you can easily tell. In the United States, there is no way for someone who's visually impaired to know if someone's giving them change as fives, tens, hundreds, 50s, ones. They have no clue. They have to trust that person.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's why other countries use different size bills.
Very interesting fact. I also saw that we use a different process for making money because their money's too easy to replicate.
It is very easy to replicate, but our money's worth the most, so ours is counterfeited way more than other countries.
Wow, that's interesting about the seeing.
I never knew that either.
Thing. Yeah. So. Okay. Well, I've learned a lot today.
I have too.
Paul Revere, different size notes, bread from Outback. It's all been very good. Hopefully, you've all learned something as well. Until next time.
See ya.